Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the live stream tonight on this Monday evening. We have a couple things to go over here. First and foremost, welcome to the stream. Be sure to hit that like button for us. We would appreciate that. Once you guys have done that, let's go ahead and dive into some of the latest data. So first and foremost, we're going to start at the beginning. Okay, we don't want to forget this. There is a severe risk overnight tonight. Primary hazard is going to be hail. That is your only hazard tonight. Okay. Timing on this is going to be after midnight through the 7 a.m. time frame. And that's going to be for the areas in dark green. So all the way down toward Berrien County, all the way up toward Grand Rapids, Alma, Mount Pleasant, just outside that risk, Saginaw, Flint, Detroit, Ann Arbor, Monroe. You guys are all in that marginal risk for hail tonight, overnight. Okay. The second risk we are more concerned and more focused on is going to be tomorrow night, Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. This is a slight risk currently. That's level 2 out of 5, and it's going to be for all hazards, being tornadoes, wind, and hail. So overall, this is your SPC graphic here. The yellow is obviously your slight risk, and then there's a little sliver of a marginal risk up by Mount Pleasant that is going to encompass the central part of Michigan there. But overall, individual hazards with this threat, we do have the threat for all hazards. First and foremost, people are all concerned about tornado threat. Here is your tornado threat map according to the SPC. The green area is your lowest 2% risk. The red area down by the border of Indiana is your 5% risk. Okay. Those areas have a potential for a tornado, according to the SPC. This is not going to be locked down just yet. We still have an outlook to go overnight into tomorrow morning. This can be changed 2 or 3 different more times. So pay attention to future forecasts for the adjustment on that. The more significant hazard with this potential setup is your hail. Okay, there is a wind threat as well, but your hail is the highest threat here. The SPC has designated a pretty big chunk of southern Michigan in a hatched area of significant hail. That means when you're hatched in that black box, that means your hail could be over 2 inches in diameter. Think bigger than golf ball. That's how big we're talking with the hail size with this. Okay. The 15% that's not in a black hatched area is still 15% risk for hail larger than 1 inch, which is your quarter size. And then with that marginal risk up by Mount Pleasant, a little bit of the reddish brown color, that's your 5% hail risk. And that's going to be, again, for severe hail, 1 inch diameter or larger. And then with your wind threat, again, it's pretty much the same areas. The yellow is 15% and the brownish red color is 5%. The highest wind threat from Grand Rapids to Lansing over towards the Detroit metro area, that is going to be your highest wind threat in the area south. North of there, a lower end threat, but still a threat nonetheless. So overall, what are the models saying? First and foremost, let's go ahead and dive in. This is your temperature graph. I'm going to focus. I know this map is cutting off the UP. We're going to focus on southern Michigan and central Michigan right now because that's where the highest threat is. We will take a peek at the UP because the UP does have a snowfall risk at the end of the system. We'll get into that at the very end of this live stream. So with that being said, the focus is going to be on the west and south of the state, moving into the state. So that's why the map is cutting the UP off. So first and foremost, your temperatures into tonight, we're going to see 50s, high 40s, and that, yes, we are going to see probably some storms in this environment that are going to produce some good size hail tonight, overnight. Okay. Into tomorrow morning, we see the temperatures respond very well, reaching 70, potentially reaching 70 in a good chunk of Michigan here. We're seeing a widespread area, 71 from Mount Pleasant all the way down to Kalamazoo into Indiana. We are seeing that response in Michigan tomorrow afternoon. Okay. Cold front comes in behind it. Those cooler temperatures there on the map. The cold front passes Wednesday morning. The state's split in half. One half is in the 20s. One half is still in the 60s. Okay. A 30 to 40 degree temperature difference Wednesday morning. But let's back up and focus on the severe threat. Okay. So we're going to have good temperature profiles in place. So 70 degrees. Okay. Let's look at moisture. What are our dew points doing? We look at dew points. We're going to see a pretty significant increase here of moisture into the area where dew points are going to reach high 50s, low 60s. They'll couple together temperatures and dew points. we have instability present. Our instability model, if you remember from the yesterday and 2 days ago, our streams were mentioning the more aggressive models, the short-term models are more aggressive. That does appear to be the case here. We're seeing surface instability over 1,000 joules, close to 2,000 joules of surface-based CAPE this tomorrow afternoon and evening. If that is realized, if that actually happens, our severe threat would be going up. The uncertainty is the overall quality of the moisture. How far north can that get? That is still the biggest question and will be the question into tomorrow morning and afternoon as we kind of look at real-time data. More moisture, higher severe threat. Excuse me, higher severe threat, lower moisture, lower severe threat, okay? Your instability is currently projected to be sufficient for severe storms. All right, how about our wind shear? Look over at our wind shear here. I know it's kind of hard to read here, but your highest wind shear is down here in Indiana right now. And it's going to push up into Michigan here later in the evening that we're going to see those reds and white colors, orange, red, white colors. Those are your higher shear parameters are pushing up into Michigan about the same time as the instability is there. But what does the radar look like? Like what could the radar potentially look like tomorrow? We switch over here to the composite reflectivity. We go into the evening time frame. We start seeing showers and storms developing on the warm front that's going to lift north through the evening. This is going to be right around the 9 p.m. time frame, give or take an hour or two. The time is not set in stone just yet. It's just a general thinking around that 9. It could be as early as 6. It could be as late as 10 or 11. So we're just going to say 9 p.m. for now. We watch this warm front lift north, and as it lifts north, it fires off storms on that warm front all throughout southern Michigan, probably parts of Illinois and Indiana as well. We see this model keeps Illinois dry, but it does try and form a squall line down here in Indiana. I think it'd be a little more aggressive than this model is showing, but overall synopsis of this, the warm front here across North Indiana, Northwest Ohio, and southern Michigan is expected to develop showers and storms. So with that being said, your timing is going to be right around that 9 p.m. time frame. But if we go ahead and overlap our ingredients here, keep an eye out on these storms here in Michigan. Look at our instability. Go ahead and bring this back up here. Our instability here. Got plenty of it available. Looking at our shear, there's plenty of it available. Looking at our spin in the atmosphere, there's a lot available, which is why we are concerned for all hazards. But there's some caveats to this. Number one being the atmosphere may be what we call capped. So what that means is there's a stable layer of air above the surface that will work to limit the updraft of the storm to become surface based, which if that happens, it'd be primarily a hail threat if that were to happen. If the storms can become surface based, it would be a all hazard type of threat for southern Michigan. I do think the highest risk is going to be along and south of I-94. I did have a map pulled up. I don't have it pulled up anymore. I apologize for that. But if you live anywhere from, say, Kalamazoo over to Detroit, along and south of 94, I think you guys have that highest tornado threat as that warm front lifts north early evening. If we look at the other models, the HRRR model, we're going to see a little bit more of a probably, I haven't looked at this just yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be a little bit more aggressive with a secondary line moving through later on in the evening, which is also a possibility. Let's see if it does this really quick. Here we go. We run this through the time frame here, a same scenario here, different model. We start seeing these showers and storms in southern Michigan right along the warm front there, but looking off to the west here, we may see another line form right here in Ohio, Indiana, that may brush the southern part of Michigan. We'll have to watch that secondary threat closely on the cold front as a wind and hail risk and maybe some tornadoes as well. But the main area of concern was with that warm front, late evening, 9 p.m. around that time frame for all hazards possible. And again, that's going to be dependent, one, on your moisture returns through the day, and two, if the atmosphere can become uncapped or if storms can break through that cap and updrafts can become rooted in the surface. So with that being said, I want to jump on to the European model really quickly and show you guys the snowfall for the UP. Let me go ahead and pull it up here. Behind the system on Wednesday morning, we do have a shot for some brief snow showers for all of Michigan. It's just going to be accumulating in the UP. We're probably going to see accumulation on grassy surfaces on the west part of Michigan Wednesday morning. it won't be anything significant. It will melt pretty fast. Okay. But for the UP, we do have a couple models here showing a couple inches of accumulation through the end of Wednesday. The European model here showing right around 2 to 4 inches. I'm sure probably going to have a little bit higher amounts than that. Maybe as far south here as the Gaylord, Alpena areas may get on some of the action for the snow, but overall, it's not going to be as significant. It's not going to be a heavy snowfall. It's just going to be a brief shot of winter for the UP. With that being said, I believe I've covered everything. So if you guys have any questions, or Joel, if you want to add anything to that, go ahead and feel free. I'll go ahead and look to the comments here and see what you guys are talking about.
If anybody wants me to go over the fail model looking at like a skew T, just let me know and I can kind of highlight that more, because that's kind of up my alley.
A lot of people on our page today, and I want to address this directly if you guys are watching. If you're in the crowd that says, oh, it's only a slight risk, oh, it's only a 5% tornado risk or a 2% risk, I can name you 5 setups in Michigan that have been 2 or 5% tornado risk that have produced tornadoes. The risk category, just because it's only a slight risk level 2 of 5, does not mean we're not going to see tornadoes in the state. The risk is definitely there. And looking at the profiles of the atmosphere, if storms can become surface-based, I would assume that the tornado threat would go up. So pay attention to future forecasts as well, because there is potential for both uptrends and downtrends with this system. The tornado potential is definitely there. So don't downplay it just because it's a slight risk or only a 2% tornado risk. So going over the northern part of Michigan here, go ahead and zoom out on this really quickly. Yes, I do think the storms are going to move into northern Michigan. We look at the model here. This is overnight. We see these storms cross the entire state of Michigan here. Likely going to have some hail, likely going to have some lightning with this, but overall severe threat is going to be highest to the south, just because the early on in the evening, your instability is highest. As you go further north, your instability will dwindle as we get later on in the evening.
Yeah, with that 5% tornado risk, this is the first time in SBC history, I think, that we are under at least a little bit of a 5% in February.
Yeah, it's only a brief sliver down here towards the Coldwater, Branch, Hillsdale, Cass, St. Joseph, and Berrien counties here. Very small portion of the southwest part of the state there. We could see that extended a little bit further north. But again, we're kind of waiting on some new model runs here and getting an idea. But yeah, it's going to be very warm and moist for February standards. That's for sure. I think we're going to make a run for records too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. 70 is a record. I don't think we've ever hit 70 in February.
We'll see if we can get there, but you got a pretty good shot, honestly.
Yeah. Someone asked if we're all out chasing tomorrow. We plan to have full staff tomorrow.
Yep, we'll be fully staffed. We have our partner chasers going out as well. We'll probably have at least, I think Joel and I think Nick as well will be on here streaming. I might go out chasing if it's going to be close to my house. And then I believe Alex Chandler will be going out to, actually, I don't know. They were planning going to Illinois, but that kind of shifted a little bit further into Michigan with this updated model run. So we'll be up there, though. We'll be out for sure.
Northern Indiana at the least.
Yeah.
To start the day for them. A couple comments in here asking about if the possibility of an enhanced risk is possible. I would say yes, mainly for hail. With the elevated lapse rates of 9 degrees Celsius per kilometer, that's a really good sounding for some severe hail, especially 2 inches in diameter down there by the border. So if not for tornadoes enhanced, it will be for hail, probably overnight tonight. And that the percentage for that would be 30%.
Right. Yeah, this is going to be I think no matter if these storms become surface based or not, I think the main concern with these storms is going to be hail all throughout the state. There's going to be probably some risk for wind and tornadoes, but the hail threat, as Joel just mentioned, there's a lot of cold air aloft in the atmosphere, which these storms are going to be really deeply rooted and potentially elevated as well. So everything right now is favoring very large hail. So no matter if there's going to be a tornado risk or a wind threat, this hail could be more than golf ball size, guys. We're talking big hail, which we don't really see very often here in Michigan, especially as a widespread basis, as the models are kind of showing this may be.
Yeah, Skylar asked if the chances of cap preventing severe weather are possible, and the answer is yes.
Yes. Not to get like too technical with this, but I can see if I can pull a sounding here with a capped atmosphere, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. That can be a little bit of an example there. Where this red line meets that white line there is a little bit of a cap.
The
What?
yellow line is your surface-based cape.
There you go. So when that red line crosses over these lines, that is your atmospheric cap. It's not a very strong cap, so it can be easily breakable, but it's a cap nonetheless. And we never want to ignore when we have a cap in place, because all too often we've seen these events bust because of the cap. So we'll keep an eye on it through the day, though.
What does convective inhibition say down there? Sin H. Surface.
Where is it at?
In brown, it looks like.
Okay, negative 155.
Okay. So convective inhibition is basically your cap. Some people were talking about that. I mentioned to the guys yesterday that minus 10 to 0 is no cap, and you'll have an early event. And then minus 10 to minus 100 is moderate cap with a late starting event. And then anything over minus 100 would be, or I guess you could say lower than minus 100 would be fully capped and hard to develop severe weather. But take note, that is your surface parcel. And as you saw in the soundings, that number actually goes up. So it's like minus 50, minus 30, the further up. So again, you will have elevated storms tomorrow night, not surface based, but elevated.
Livonia is in the slight risk. Level 2 of 5. Trenton, you're in the slight risk as well. Again, guys, the slight risk encompasses everywhere in southern Michigan, all the way up to Grand Rapids, Alma, Flint, Port Huron. If you're those areas and point south, you are in the level 2 out of 5. If you are south or along the I-94 corridor from Benton Harbor to Kalamazoo to Detroit, in areas south, you are in the highest tornado risk for tomorrow night. The SPC updates at, I want to say 1:30 tonight, or is it 12:30? It might be 12:30.
It's 1 a.m. for day one.
Okay, so there you go. I was wrong.
They might release it early if they got their details ready.
Plan for me personally right now is take a nap between probably midnight and 2 or 3, and then kind of watch weather. And if you need to go live overnight, we might go live overnight. So we have Alex joining us now. Good evening, Alex.
Hey, good evening, guys.
Nice to hear from you.
Yeah.
We're gearing up for a nice active 36-hour stretch.
Yeah, we are. I wanted to jump on considering the potential severity of the threat.
I think one thing that I did mention in the forecast earlier that I want to mention here, it's February. Okay, so you guys all watch and are aware of this threat, right? Your friends and neighbors and everyday people who don't really care about the weather aren't going to realize there's a threat tomorrow because it's winter technically still. So the more I'm just going to say this, the more you share content, not only from us, but from like the SPC or the NWS, the better off the public is going to be, because people are not going to be expecting this at all who are not following the weather closely. Which is also kind of why we're pushing out these content more so than we would in the summertime, just because it's February.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. It's a good point. We're only a couple of days away from March 1st. Our severe weather awareness week that they put out every year for the state of Michigan is still about 3 weeks away. We're, as Ryan said, still in meteorological winter. We're still at the tail end of February when we're normally talking about winter storms, not severe storms.
Right. It's not uncommon to get a storm system like this in February either. It's just we're usually on the cold side of it.
Exactly.
Port Huron, you are in the slight risk. See Wendy asking for that. Just south of Adrian, be an active evening. Yes, it should be, Kenny. Yes, guys, we do have a YouTube channel as well. Michigan Storm Chasers is the name. If you guys would like to prefer to watch us on YouTube instead of Facebook, you're welcome to do that. I know on Facebook it kind of limits you from scrolling if you watch a live feed or a video, but on YouTube you can have that run in the background and still do what you want to do. So for those of you who preference YouTube over Facebook, we are live on YouTube as well simultaneously.
And X.
Yes.
And X too, Twitter, yes.
Blaine asks, looks like conditions will be far more unstable than expected a few days earlier with the Cape increasing on the mile runs. Do you think it's possible for the slight risk to be extended north? Maybe like a row, but Alex, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I didn't mean to interrupt, Joel. The marginal may be expanded a little bit further up. Now we don't want to forget about tonight either. There is a marginal risk for tonight as well for elevated thunderstorms that could produce hail. And that does cover most of south and southeast Michigan, generally from a line from Benton Harbor to Alma to Saginaw to the Thumb. Along in southeast of that line, could see thunderstorms overnight tonight, and they could be pretty noisy, especially if you're asleep at night. All of a sudden you wake up to hail, or if you're leaving tomorrow morning for work, there could be still some residual thunderstorms around that may produce hail. So not just about tomorrow. Tomorrow's the bigger day, but don't want to sleep on tonight, especially.
Looking at overnight, or looking at the updated models for tonight, which I have not done yet, I believe it favors the eastern part of Michigan there, but we see some development there across Lansing all the way up to Mount Pleasant there. This is going to be 2 a.m. tonight. And those storms can produce hail as well. And then that will continue into the morning hours there. So updated models here, just kind of scattered showers and storms overnight tonight, any of which could produce hail.
Yeah, it's kind of a back and forth as to what may develop. You have that push of warm, moist air from the southwest, especially elevated up in the atmosphere, that warm, moist air, but it's also going to be fighting what we call an elevated mix layer, or that dry air that's going to be advecting in the morning as well. So there's going to be some capping issues. So it's really going to be that fight between the two, which one's going to win. At least right now, I would say there's enough to say for at least a slight chance of thunderstorms overnight. I don't think it's going to be widespread at all, which is why we only have the marginal risk.
I would agree with that. All right, any other questions, guys, regarding either setup? Feel free to drop them in chat. We'll do our best to answer them.
A couple people asking about like storm anxiety, how to deal with it, but I believe Julie's helping answer that.
We do have an article on our website addressing storm anxiety as well, for those of you who want to read that article as well. Just go to michiganstormchasers.com, and it should be under resources. What counties do we expect to get the worst of it? Worst of exactly what? There's all hazards are possible, but I think the highest risk for tornadoes and wind potential is going to be along and south of 94. Kalamazoo, Jackson, Ann Arbor, Detroit, those areas, and areas south of the border. And then everywhere in Michigan has, I think, an equal hail threat, given the environment.
Yeah, this is going to be a really decent setup for hail, large hail. And, it's a good point to remember a lot of our early season events that we've had in Michigan have produced very large hail in the past, usually in March or April. But some of these storms can produce hail over 2.5 inches in diameter. And that can cause significant damage to homes, to roofs, to cars, and along with heavy rain, even damaging winds. Not just the tornado threat. That's not to be ignored, but the hail threat, especially, I think, has been under talked about a lot. And the fact that a lot of areas in southern Michigan, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Alma, Flint, Saginaw, even anywhere in the slight risk, even in the marginal risk, Mount Pleasant, Muskegon, over to even the southern parts of the Thumb, over to Port Huron, could see large hail with any thunderstorms. So just be aware of that. Even a severe thunderstorm warning that's issued, you need to treat it seriously tomorrow just for the potential for large hail.
Are both threats supercell based, not QLCS? The answer is going to be a mixed mode is likely. I think supercellular would be the mode overnight tonight, if not multicell. And then for tomorrow night, I'm going to say supercells with the warm front, and there's a potential for a QLCS later on the evening, but that's a little bit more uncertain at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be that transition. So they'll initially be discrete supercell type storms, and then eventually, as more forcing comes in the late evening and overnight hours, it'll tend to force those storms into clusters. But again, that switches the threat. Those discrete cells could produce a higher tornado threat. If they cluster more, that could force a bigger damaging wind threat as well.
Is this the start to this year's spring weather? Asked Lindsay. Could be. Long term, we're going to stay warm, but mid-March, late March, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's funny that roller coaster we're going to be on this week after tonight, getting cold again. Tonight into later overnight, Tuesday night rather. Sorry, tomorrow night, overnight through Wednesday, as that cold front comes through, is going to drop us some 40 degrees back down to a taste of winter, which is normal for this time of year before we start rebounding again. And it looks like we got temps back in the 50s and 60s next weekend again.
Kenny, you can send us storm photos directly to our email or here on Facebook. Just direct message the page. Our email is in our biography on Facebook, and then you should have an option to message us as well. Are power outages likely for homes and schools? Yes, they are. Although I'm going to say it's not going to be as high of a threat, just because I think the wind threat is not going to be as widespread on a localized basis. Yes, outages are possible, but I'm not too concerned about widespread outages at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be a typical severe weather event where, unfortunately, if you are hit by a severe thunderstorm, your village or town or city will lose power, if trees or power lines come down. But there could be villages and towns nearby that don't lose power. It's just going to be very scattered and very select, depending on what storms move in which direction and which areas get affected the most.
I see a lot of people asking about timing again. So we'll go over the radar here once again. Your timing is going to be right around as early as 6 p.m., or it could be as late as 10 p.m. or perhaps even later. It's been trending a little bit later today. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But right now, models are bringing in showers and storms on that warm front in southern Michigan right around the 10 p.m., 9 p.m. time frame here. This particular frame here has storms entering Michigan right around 9 p.m.
Kind of as like a blanket sort of notification, just know that it's going to be overnight both nights, and that you should have a way to receive warning at any time, whether that's NOAA Weather Radio or an app.
Detroit is included in the wind threat for tomorrow, yes. And so is Monroe County. I see Monroe County getting asked a lot here. Monroe County, you guys are in the all hazards, as well as most of Michigan here. Not most of Michigan, most of lower Michigan, from Grand Rapids, Alma, Flint, Port Huron, and south. You guys are in all hazard, including tornadoes, hail, and wind. But furthest south towards the 94 corridor has the highest tornado and wind threat.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what Joel had said about ways to receive warnings, especially being a potential nighttime event both nights. It's really good to keep your phones charged. Make sure you have a way to receive warnings. NOAA weather radios are the best, and they're not that expensive. They're, $35-$40. I think you can buy them at Meijer, Walmart, or online. They are your best tool, especially for overnight severe weather. If you can't afford that, obviously, All cell phones have alerts to them if you keep your phone charged and your volume up. Just get a way to have those warnings, especially later at night if you have to go to bed.
We will be live possibly overnight tonight if it warrants, but tomorrow, we will be live more than likely in the evening. I see a question here. Where we're going to be staging tomorrow? That's going to be probably posted tomorrow afternoon as we get a better idea on specific details. Most likely Southwest Michigan, though.
For apps, for warnings, I have an app called Emergency. It's by Red Cross. You can customize your warnings and watches to whatever you want to be notified for, and it gives you like a little chime every time it goes off. And then if there's like a tornado warning, it literally just sounds a siren. So it's pretty good.
Storm speed is going to be right around 40 to 50 miles per hour. So pretty quick moving storms.
Livonia, you're in the slight risk for Tuesday. Marginal risk for tonight. Same with Flint.
Julie asks if she should keep her kids downstairs tonight, which is going to be a hail threat. I was going to leave them be, but yeah, it's only going to be a hail threat tonight. There's no wind or tornadic threat overnight tonight. That threat comes tomorrow night.
It's called Emergency. That's the app name.
If you guys haven't already, hit that like button on the stream. We would appreciate that. We got 700 people in here watching, 400 likes in the stream. Let's get to 700, guys.
Strength of tornado, that is not determined until after it happens. Any strength tornado, I mean, they rate them by just tornadoes, significant tornadoes, and violent tornadoes. So the cutoff for each is EF0 to EF2, EF2 to EF3, and then EF4 and higher is your violent perimeter. But again, it depends on what it hits and, where the wind gauges are set up in relation to the tornado. So again, rating is something that's not predetermined.
Yeah.
Tornadoes are not likely tonight. Only
Yeah.
a hail threat. I see a lot of questions about the risk tonight. No, it's only going to be a hail threat tonight. Should I move my car under the carport tonight in Lansing? Might be a good idea. It might be a good idea to do that. If you have access to a garage or a carport, it's going to be probably isolated to scattered coverage of storm. So the odds are, 50-50 you maybe make it hit. But precautionary, yeah, I'd say go ahead and do that.
If not tonight, then tomorrow.
For sure.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Because that hatch risk pretty much butts right up to Lansing. If you wanted to show that really quick again.
Yeah.
Hatch tail.
Ann Arbor's included, Jackson's included, like Southern Ingham County's included. But Lansing is not. But it's so close, so.
Yeah. And again, to reiterate, especially with that hatching, a lot of the times we'll be in a risk for severe weather. But there's not a lot of times where you'll see that hatching. And that hatching denotes significant severe weather. In this case, the hail probability is significant hail over 2 inches in diameter.
If a tornado happens, what intensity? Again, what Joel just said kind of reiterates that, although I don't think we're going to be looking at strong tornadoes tomorrow. I don't think we are. But again, if that changes, you'll be the first to know. What's the Torcon? We don't do Torcon here.
Torcon's a Weather Channel thing.
Yeah, that's a Weather Channel thing. I don't follow that kind of stuff. We will be posting a little bit more in-depth threat analysis tomorrow morning. We may include a little bit of like a out of 10 type of scenario.
Like a confidence meter.
Confidence meter. Yeah, there you go. Like a 1 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. We'll post that probably tomorrow morning when we have more details at our fingertips to look at. But overall, I think the risk for this overall is going to be pretty much hail, but I don't want to ignore that wind and tornadic threat there as well, especially if storms become surface-based. Flat Rock tonight will have a hail threat. Yes, I do. I would definitely see that hatched area being extended even further. The environment across southern Michigan, up towards Grand Rapids to Flint, those areas do suggest that we could see some large hail as well. It's just right now, being 2 days out from this, or being 1 day out, I guess now, the confidence is going to be highest in that hatched area. Although when it get to the day of tomorrow, it probably will be expanded or refined, so to speak. Yes, there will be a break tomorrow between the storms. Overnight storms will move out right around the sunrise, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and then we'll have a break all day. It may be cloudy for most all day, but Tuesday evening, it'll pick back up. What weather radio do you guys recommend? We recommend Midland WR120, I believe it's called. I'll double check that really quick. It's, I think, $35 on Amazon, and we all have them in our houses, and we've used them for a few years now. And yes, that's correct. Midland WR120. Those are the best on the market that I have personally found. Of course, you're going to have different opinions, but that's just my personal. Romulus tonight, again, hail threat for you guys in Romulus tomorrow. Mainly going to be a wind and hail threat, potentially a tornado threat developing. We'll have more information on the overall tornado threat tomorrow morning and afternoon. But right now, we think it's going to be a fairly low threat. But again, that could change with new data coming in tomorrow. I would not expect to see an ice risk tomorrow or Wednesday when the temperature drops. I don't expect that to happen. We may see a few areas try to freeze elevated surfaces, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah, take note. Some of you guys might be seeing a 50-degree temperature swing.
Right. I'm way behind in comments. Oof. Yeah, guys, for those, I see some questions here regarding with the hatched area moving or the tornado risk moving. Everything is subject to moving at this point. We're going to have new data coming in here within the next couple hours here. The SPC outlet comes out at 1, you said 1 o'clock, Joel?
Yep.
So there's going to be further adjustments made to this forecast. It's not a final forecast. We'll have updates on our page. We'll go live tomorrow morning to cover the updates, as well as, kind of get an idea of how things are looking. So pay attention tomorrow morning on our page as well. And we'll have updates all throughout the afternoon and evening tomorrow as well. So these are not final areas. Yes, main threat will be tomorrow night, although there is a threat for hail tonight. Don't ignore that. But the overall highest threat is going to be for tomorrow night. So again, this is your risk tonight. The marginal risk level 1 of 5 for areas from Saginaw, Flint, Port Huron, Detroit, Ann Arbor, Lansing, Alma, just to the east of Grand Rapids there, Kalamazoo, Coldwater. You guys are all in that marginal risk for large hail tonight. But then tomorrow, all hazards are possible in the yellow area there in southern and central Michigan.
For the one comment asking about the gale warning, there is not a gale warning in effect. There is a gale watch in effect for Lake Huron, and that starts Wednesday morning through the entire day on Wednesday.
How often will updates be tomorrow? So we will go live tomorrow morning, probably around 10, 11 a.m. And then we will have text forecast updates either from the SPC or regarding what we're kind of watching. Probably like every hour or so, I'd assume. And then we'll go live for chasing and also radar coverage tomorrow as these storms approach. So all day tomorrow, watch the page, stay tuned, and we'll keep you updated.
Nicole, tonight, not necessarily we're good. We still have that elevated hail risk tonight, especially for southeast and southern Michigan. We are also on YouTube. We are streaming live on YouTube right now. So if you have a YouTube account, feel free to subscribe.
Yes, Three Rivers is in the zone for tornadoes. This is going to be for tomorrow night. What's the best free radar for PC? I don't think there is one.
I don't know of any. Mine's the one we use is GR2, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah. The cheapest one if you can get for your phone, probably for desktop too, would probably be Radar Scope. That or Radar Omega. I think Radar Omega is subscription though. Radar Scope is a one-time. No, it's a subscription. Or no, is it?
Well, just to get Radar Scope is $10, but then you have it. But if you want the tier 1, it's $10 a year. It's not bad. Not sponsored.
Please sponsor us, Radar Scope. Just kidding.
No, we'd rather have you guys know of apps than be left in the dark.
Yeah, Tony, I don't know of any that are free that are like Radar Omega. I've heard a lot of people like Windy, the app called Windy. So you might want to check that one out. But I personally don't have that. Most of the weather apps that you have on the market that are free are going to have pretty spotty radar quality. So I wouldn't really know.
Lake Odessa 2% for tomorrow night. What app for phone will sound for tornado? Again, that would be Emergency by Red Cross. At least that's what I use. Yeah, if you're hardcore and you really want to get tier 2 for Radar Scope, I believe it's $100 a year, which comes out to not much a month, but I don't even have tier 2.
Any other questions, guys? No, John, I think the tornado risk is going to be pretty good where it's at. If not, extended just a little bit further into the north, like a county tier or so. Wouldn't expect too much shifting with that at this point. The emergency radar we suggest is going to be Midland WR120. Again, we'll have updates where we're going to be targeting in terms of storm chasing tomorrow. We'll post updates as we kind of get a better idea with more data at our fingertips. So expect a post regarding our locations or approximate locations. We're not going to give out our exact locations, but approximate location will be given tomorrow. All right, so I'm gonna recap. I see a lot of people asking just came on here and just started watching. I'll recap and we're gonna hop off here. So first and foremost, tonight, I'm gonna repeat that, tonight, there is a risk for only hail. There is no wind, there is no tornado risk tonight in the state. There is going to be a hail risk in the dark green areas. It's going to be a scattered coverage. Not everybody's going to see a storm tonight, but those who do, those storms are going to have potential for large hail. That extends all the way to the thumb through Michigan, back toward Grand Rapids, back toward Benton Harbor, and areas east toward Detroit. Those areas are in the marginal risk. Those storms will be right around midnight to 7 a.m. Okay. Then tomorrow night, Tuesday night, the slight risk is going to be from Grand Rapids to Alma to Saginaw over to Port Huron. Then there's going to be a little bit of a sliver of a marginal risk a bit further north there, but your slight risk is level 2 out of 5. That is going to be for all hazards possible: tornadoes, wind, and hail. The main concern with the whole system is going to be hail. We have a lot of cold air aloft. That's going to be your main threat. The tornado threat does appear to be highest in the southern part of the state, where we see a 5% risk that has been introduced along in Southwest Michigan there, but also that 2% risk does extend further north to cover the slight risk area. So there is going to be a small tornado risk in the state, but I think it's going to be, personally think it's going to be highest along and south of I-94. At least with the data we have right now, that could change tomorrow morning. So keep an eye out for future outlooks. The radar is going to show storms developing on the warm front about 9 p.m., give or take an hour or two. We see a good return here on the warm front in southern Michigan. This is going to be for right around 9 to 10 p.m. All right. That could change, but right now that's what the expectation on timing. We look at the overall environment it's in. We have a lot of shear. There's your shear, a lot of spin. There's a lot of spin in the atmosphere, and then also a lot of instability. So the overlap of all those together create the potential for all severe hazards. One caveat we're watching is the atmospheric cap and the moisture returns. A lower moisture return would mean a lower severe threat. A higher moisture return on par with what the models are showing would be a higher severe threat. So we'll have to watch moisture and also the cap of the atmosphere. Cap basically is a stable layer of air above the surface that limits storms from becoming surface-based. If that cap does not break, storms will likely still happen, but they'll be elevated in terms of their updraft would only contain hail and wouldn't contain tornadoes or wind. Okay, those are the two issues we're kind of watching and more so concerns with the setup not materializing as best as it possibly could. But if everything comes together, we do expect hail, wind, and tornadoes to be a threat, especially tornadoes and wind in the southern part of the state. But the hail will be the biggest threat for the entire severe risk area.
For those who are wondering what it takes to get hail damage on your car, in Plainwell 2020, I went storm chasing there, and we dealt with some 1.75-inch size hail, so almost 2 inches. And to this day, I still have the hail dents on the hood of my car and on the roof of the car. Surprisingly, the windshield actually held up. So if it would have been probably a 1/4 inch larger, you might start seeing some cracks in the windows. So
when are we going to know about moisture returns? Tomorrow morning and afternoon. We'll watch real live data coming in from weather stations to our south. We'll have the dew points, humidity levels. We'll have all that data at our fingertips in real time, not just looking at models' ideas, but actually real data, which is going to be vital to this forecast. So tomorrow morning, we'll have our eyes peeled to our weather stations to the south to get their moisture returns and readings and stuff like that. We do expect the cap to break. It's a pretty weak cap for the most part. And with we call a low level jet, as that warm front pushes north, that low level jet of upper level winds are going to move into the area at about the right time. When that happens, it's going to help break that cap. Again, that's what we expect to happen. But again, these caps can be fickle sometimes, so we'll have to watch that closely as well.
and we definitely need some moisture support.
Yes, that's also true. It kind of goes hand in hand there. Joel, do you know if IWX does balloon launches? I know Detroit does. Grand Rapids does, and I think Indianapolis does, but I don't think IWX does. So balloon launches.
No, they don't.
Okay. What's the closest one to Southwest Michigan?
Davenport, Iowa, Central Illinois, Green Bay, Detroit, and Gaylord are about the 5 closest around here.
Okay. So what happens on 7 a.m., 8 a.m. ish, and again 7 a.m. or 7 p.m., 8 p.m. ish? The NWS local offices who do these balloon launches will launch what they call a radio snode, or is that how you say it?
Radio sonde.
There you go. They'll launch a balloon into the atmosphere that takes everything we need to know about the atmosphere. It's basically pulling a sounding, which is this look right here, this data, X-ray of the atmosphere. That balloon launch will give us a profile just like this, but instead of having a model do it, it'll be real hard data. So getting that data as well tomorrow is going to be vital to this forecast as well. So we'll be watching those. We'll watch the morning sounding. We call them soundings, the morning balloon launch really closely out of Detroit and real closely to our south as well. All right, guys, with that being said, I think we're about to hop off here. We'll be watching the models tonight. So we may post an update tonight. Probably won't unless something significant changes or downtrends or uptrends. Expect a forecast to be posted tomorrow morning. We'll go live tomorrow morning. Maybe a live stream overnight tonight if it warrants. But if things don't get too out of hand, we won't go live more than likely. We'll save our energy for Tuesday evening.
Absolutely. We might be up pretty late Tuesday night, so we'll keep that in mind.
All right, guys.
Someone asked which way the storm's traveling, and that was mainly going to be southwest to northeast.
Yep. Branch County tonight, you're going to be in a hail threat, and then tomorrow it's going to be all hazards possible. Tornadoes, wind, and hail all being possible for you in Branch. All right, guys. With that being said, oh, one more question here. Have your plans changed since yesterday with your forecast? It's trended up, and that's all we're going to say for this point. Just because models last night and yesterday didn't really show this amount of moisture and stability into the region, but today's models did. So it's trended up, but we'll go ahead and update our forecast if needed tomorrow with new data. So.
And for those who deal with storm anxiety, we will do our best to keep you guys updated as much as possible. And other ways to stay updated as well would be through the National Weather Service and their alerts. So, and you can also go read that blog post, which I actually put in the comments. So
you can also go to our website, michiganstormchasers.com, and hit the blog tab, not the resources, the blog tab. And you can find that weather anxiety post there as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, with that being said, I think we're about to hop off here. So do us a favor and hit that like button on your way out. We would appreciate that. And we'll go live again tomorrow morning with an update. With that being said, I'm done here. Joel, you have anything to say?
Nope. If you guys have any requests on what you guys want to see after the stream, just comment on one of our posts that's not the live stream, and we'll try our best to address it.
There you go. All right, guys, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and end it here. So again, watch for our updates on our page. We'll be live tomorrow morning, potentially overnight tonight, depending on how things play out. But overall, we'll have you guys covered. Stay safe.
See you, everyone.